View. Some of you may remember last time I talked about we need to have a spectrum in mind of moving people from A to Z. How many of you remember my A to Z thing? Okay. How many of you were not here when we did this? Okay, good. So let me do a little review. So it's good to think in terms of people moving from far away from God or far away from a belief in the principles of the gospel to moving much closer. And the way I think of it is a spectrum from A to Z. So down on this, imagine a line here in midair with the alphabet on it, A through Z. Got it? Okay, good. So Z is a person who's really, really close to becoming a Christian. They believe in God. They've heard why Jesus died, what this is all about. It makes sense to them. They realize they're a sinner. They must have forgiveness. All you would need to say to this person at letter Z is, it sounds to me like you're ready to become a Christian. Are you? Yes. How do I do that? And then you might pray with them. You might have them repeat a prayer. You say, you tell God you want to be a Christian. You want to be saved by what Jesus did for you on the cross. You want to trust in him. So Z, and then they begin a new spectrum of growth as a Christian from beginning newborn to mature Christian, okay? And then A, on the other side, is the most hardened, angry, closed atheist you can imagine. I'm messing you up with you're trying to take pictures, right? Sorry. So everybody we meet who are not believers are somewhere on this A to Z scale. Now, I do realize people are more complex than that, so but for at least in some way, think about that. And what I said last time, I think many of our evangelistic programs and tools and ideas believed that the person we were talking to was already pretty far along, maybe at letter T. And so there were evangelistic tools, booklets, the Four Spiritual Laws, Billy Graham's The Bridge Diagram, a number of different ideas that assumed people already were at letter T, and evangelism was TUVWXYZ. Would you like to know God personally? And there was a period of time in our culture when a whole lot of people knew what God you were talking about. You said, would you like to know God personally? And the God they were thinking of was the God you were talking about. And so you could talk about this God being a personal God, a God of holiness and righteousness, and a God of love who is eternal, and you would want to spend eternity with them. And so there was a period of time when a lot of evangelistic strategies began with the idea people are predisposed to wanting to believe in God. They just don't, and to know salvation. They just don't know how. Are you following this? A whole ton of our culture has shifted dramatically down this end. Even here, by the way, in the Dallas buckle of the Bible Belt world, I was told that phrase by one of your pastors, so it's okay. No, because our world is so much more international and cosmopolitan. People have moved here from all over, and so people are just further on this side of the spectrum. And so today, conversations very often begin at letter D, not letter T. And so starting with, would you like to know God personally, is not a good starting point for people on this side of the spectrum. Which God are you talking about? I mean, I have Buddhist friends, I have Hindu friends, I have Muslim friends. Which God are you talking about? And how do you know that this is true? And where did you get these ideas? And why should I believe you? And aren't you all a bunch of bigots and homophobic idiots? I don't think I'm not predisposed to want to join your camp. So conversations at letter D are different than letter T. And they may be more gradual. The research I've done about how people come to faith is it's more of a gradual thing. And so maybe our conversations need to move people from D to E and let them think for a while of what that's like. And then E to moving forward. By the way, even if people are at letter D, the power of the gospel is not diminished. God still moves and draws people. And we think it's this is going to be a long process. There are plenty of people who are stuck at letter D for a very long time. And they make, okay, maybe I need to rethink about this, whatever, and they move to D and a half. And then they get the rest of the way rather quickly. So all I'm trying to say is, And in case some of you are resistant to this, Jesus spoke to Nicodemus in John chapter 3 differently than he spoke to the woman at the well in John chapter 4. Paul preached differently in a Jewish synagogue in Acts 13, very differently than he did on Mars Hill to a group of secular philosophers in Acts 17. Paul said, I became all things to all people so that by all means I might save some. So for some people, you get into a conversation with them and you find they do believe in God. They do believe in a personal God. They do believe in a God who communicates. They do believe in a God who judges. And so you could say to that person, if you were to die tonight, how sure are you that you'd go to heaven? You know that question? It's a great question. But it's a letter T question, isn't it? And if you expanded it a little bit, if you were to die tonight and stand before God and he were to say, why should I let you into heaven? What would you say? Okay, that's a very elaborate letter T question that assumes they already believe in God, they believe in a personal God, they believe in heaven, they believe that something they would say would make a difference. If they're at letter D, if you were to die tonight, I think I shared this last time, my Jewish relatives who are really at negative W wouldn't even let me finish the question. If you were to die tonight, shut up, what is your problem? There's an Eastern European Jewish superstition that says if you say bad things, they'll happen to you. So if you were to die tonight is not a good starter. It's a good start for a fight, I guess. But so that was a long answer to it. But now none of you are going to ask questions like, that's how long he's going to go? So we need to ask questions and be really good listeners, and then try to see where people are and ask God for wisdom. What do I say? How do I say it? I really hope you're sensing there's probably not just one way to evangelize. There is one message we need to proclaim. But how we get there and how we articulate it and how even words that we use, we need to ask God for wisdom about how to do that. By the way, I realize that when I do this, I could be overwhelming you with, I got to memorize 1 million different presentations. No, we need to connect with a God who gives us wisdom. And we need to ask questions, and we say, Lord, give me the ability to hear what this person is saying and how they're saying it. What are the aches? What are the questions that they have? And when they ask a question that we don't know the answer to, we say, I don't know. And we say, let me think about that. Let me get back to you. I think some of us put ourselves under some unnecessary pressure of I've got to know all the answers before they ask them. Now, the more prepared we can be, the better, sure. But if you're thinking I've got to have this all mapped out and figured out before I start, you'll never start. So I think we need to start with conversations and see where it goes and see where the Lord takes it, and ask God for wisdom along the way and be willing to say, well, can I get back to you? I think it's really perfectly fine. In fact, it's even better than that to be able to say to people, hey, you remember like a month ago you asked me that question and I didn't know. I froze. I had no idea what to say. I've been thinking about it. I got a couple of ideas. I still don't totally know, but I wonder if we could revisit that. I think people would love that. Shows them that you respect them and care about them enough to think about it and to bring up the topic. Okay, so I'm doing too much talking because my voice